In this video, I'm going to share 7 automation techniques that pro producers use that beginners don't. And here's the track that we're going to be working with today. I want to share 7 techniques that I've used in this track to make it really dynamic, really alive. So we're going to talk about how to add live to your shakers with LFO, creative filtering, volume automation, creative panning, saturation automation, EQ automation, and master automation. So let's get started. This one is going to be a lot of fun. And let's start with the shakers. So let me solo and show you how it sounds. So the shaker loop here sounds really alive, really that it has a lot of movement, and I'm going to show you the secret, what I've done. So let me solo actually the main one. There are a couple of techniques that I used. So for this one, this is how it sounds. First of all, don't forget about the groove, the velocity, and all of those things. This is pretty basic stuff. I think you should be familiar with that. So it's already sounding pretty nice, right? The next thing that I've done to the shaker is that I used an LFO. And now you're going to see that with the LFO, we can control the decay time. All right, so we can map this one to the decay time, right? You can see that it's mapped. And then we can tweak the offset. And then the coolest thing about the LFO is that we can choose the rate. So basically what we do here, we create polyrhythm, maybe even polymeters, something like that. But it's sounding way more interesting than if we would not use an LFO, right? And then what we're going to do, we're going to use the second LFO to control the offset of the first one to add even more movement. And moreover, we're going to use different rate. So that's going to be really cool. So check this out. We can play with the rhythm. So you get this sort of like polyrhythm feeling, and this is what I really, really like. Even though that we have like basically just the standard pattern here, it still sounds really nice. I just love this technique. It's super simple, and you can use it for the shakers, for the tambourines, basically for any sort of this kind of loop, right? Super simple. So that was the first technique for today. The second technique that I want to show you that I discovered just accidentally, I don't know how, it just sounded really, really cool, is that you can filter your group. So instead of individual channels, you can filter the groups. So listen to this drop and to the break as well. So basically what is cool about this technique is that when we filter the group, if you are using your send return channels in pre-mode, basically it means that you can control the volume of your reverb and the main sound independently. So it doesn't matter if the sound is like quiet, if the volume is at 0, you will still get the sound. And in this track, that was like a really, really cool idea. So you can see that I put a filter on this group. Right, and then we just slowly start introducing this thing. One more cool thing with filtering that I want to show you is if you, for example, close it, we can play with the return channels just like this. So by automating the filter, the volume, and the amount of reverb and the delay, you can really put the instruments either in front of the mix or at the back of the mix. So this is like a really, really cool thing that I just love. So you can feel how the vibe changes, how the position of the instrument changes when we work with the volume and with the send return channels. The next thing that I want to talk about is going to be the volume automation. And this is such an underlooked automation technique that I don't see a lot of people using. I mean, people talk about that on YouTube in their tutorials, but really it should have more of your attention. If you don't automate your volume, there will not be like enough dynamics in the mix. So let me show you one example. Not bad, right? It's okay, but now we can take this thing to the next level if we automate some gain here, right? So we can emphasize the specific part of the sound, right? So let's say we want to emphasize this one. This is such a simple thing, but so many people just forget about it. Let me show you what I've done here basically. So for this loop, so if you listen all together, all of the instruments in this group, so basically what you can do with volume automation, let's say that this is sort of important sound. So we can boost here, and then on the other hand, we can cut here, right? So we are basically just like creating space for this element by automating the volume. And again, it adds dynamics, it makes your mixes way cleaner. That's the best thing about this technique. And it's super simple, like there's nothing really that complicated about it. So again, one more example would be just showing you the shakers. So I don't just start with the shakers right away, right? So for example, in this loop, so we just gradually introduce the elements. It could be the shakers, it could be the instrument, pads, anything. So make sure you guys automate volume. Super easy trick, but so powerful. All right, let's now talk about creative panning. Panning is a really great way to make your instruments, to make your sounds more audible to the ears, because quite often what happens in the mix is if it's static, just like in the middle, our ears can't catch the sound so easily, right? So a couple of things that I've done for some of the sounds in this mix is that I took this main sort of percussive synth sound, and this is how it sounds, right? So I'm going to solo. Right, and in the mix, it sounds so much more interesting when you use this technique, and I would really recommend using this plugin called PanFlow. It's free, and it's literally the best panning plugin that I've ever had. I use different ones, but this one is so cool, and you can put it like on the shakers as well. So if you listen to the shakers, for example, it's gonna be like this. I do have this one, PanFlow, on one of the shakers, and you can see that there is some sort of like pattern. Let me modify it so it's more audible, a bit more interesting, something like this. And since it's the shaker, we can really pan it hard right, hard left. It's not a problem. With the synths and other sounds, I would be more careful with that. Not that you can't do it, but just be more careful so you don't mess up like the panning the face and so on. So. And then maybe we can just put it on the whole group of all of the shakers. Right, and now it's way more interesting. And then the best part about this one is that you can combine this with the volume automation. You can combine this with the other techniques, right? So again, we combine the LFO trick that I've shown you in the beginning, we combine the volume automation, and then we combine the panning automation, and it's really gonna take your mixes, your sounds to the next level. Okay, let's talk about the next tip, saturation automation. This is a really cool tip that I don't see a lot of people do. And you can just put it on any group, any sound. For example, pretty cool thing would be to, let's say we want to emphasize this part. We just want to put some sort of an accent on this one. Let's make it, I don't know, red. And then what we could do, we could put some, let's use satin for this one. And then I just want to add some distortion on a specific part of the track. And a cool thing about this plugin is that you can automate, and you can also use modulation. I'm going to show that as well. Right, and we can add some drive. Let's use broken tube because it's really audible, and then maybe a bit less of. Right, so we can use something like this. Again, it creates a more interesting character to the sound, to the timbre, to the like overall sonic characteristic. It creates more movement. It works on the dynamics of the track. And then we can also automate the volume just to compensate that. Just think after that, like this. So that sounds really interesting to me, to my ear, and you can go like even more creative. Let's say that we can put a saturation on the drums that I have already, and then for, let's say for this part, for the top end, for the drums, we can play with the drive knob here as well. So we can emphasize again the specific part of our drums and go something like. And then we can go back. So it's really as simple as that. And then one more trick that I want to show you is if we, for example, use saturation on the group, we can do really cool things, but inside the plugin. So let's say that we want to emphasize the sub. And we can add a modulation source. So let's do like this. And then we're gonna put it to the level like this. And then we're gonna go with negative, right? With the minus. And we can compress the sound just a bit, right? This is also really cool. Now it's way more balanced. And we could really play with those parameters in Satan, like such a cool plugin. I just love it for saturation, for movement. And this is just like a little thing that you can do with it, but I just want to show you like the creative thinking, the idea behind what you could do with automation. Again, on kicks, on basses, especially like on pads and those kind of sounds, you can automate distortion, bring it back, and it's gonna make your mixes like so much more interesting if you use this technique. And again, one more thing that you can do in Saturn is you can play with mid and side saturation, right? So for example, we could use mid side, and then we put, let's say, this down, right? And maybe we just want to automate the side of the sound to give it like more wide feeling. And we're gonna do like, right? And then on the other hand, if we just use mono, and you can go even further if you automate the mid and side knob, right? So like the panning of the whole thing itself. So yeah, this is just like my observation, what I've been doing for my tracks. So make sure you use this technique as well, because it's so cool. Okay, let's go to the next tip. Now let's talk about the EQ automation. This one is going to be really interesting. And then we can record this automation, and then we're going to record the same thing for the other bands. Wait. Right, so it's pretty simple, obviously not the best example, but depending on the sound, the resonating bands, the resonating frequencies, they can really add some juice to your track, to the drop or to the breakdown, right? And then there was one more thing that I've done that I want to show you. So there's this, you can see how much automation I use in my tracks, just crazy. You can see that for this sound, if you listen, it's positioned in the mix in a really interesting way. So if you listen like this. Now, I'm going to disable the EQ, and then you're going to feel the difference. So we can go even further. You can hear that it's positioned more like in the left ear, which sounds really cool. So instead of using the pan, I'm just using the EQ, the left and right EQ filters. So this one is like left and this one is right. So I'm boosting the left and I'm cutting the right, and this way it positions the instrument in a really interesting way. So what we could do, we could just automate these parameters, and it's going to be like this. All right, let me try. And then it's going to change over time. Okay, now we need to do the same thing for the other bands or filters, because it's now like a little bit too loud. And what we could do is okay, that's really interesting. I like how nice and it just sounds in the mix in terms of the precision. So if we listen in the mix, that's going to be like really, really interesting. Let's check it out. So this technique is really cool, isn't it? I hope you like it, guys. So be creative with all of the things that we talked so far. I'm giving you the creative thinking, and then you can just develop that depending on what kind of music that you make, what kind of sound that you want. But this is like really, really cool stuff that I use that I haven't seen like a lot of people doing the same way. It's not like it's unique to me, but just like in the way that I explain, I think we need more tutorials like that. Right. So, okay. And now let's talk about the master automation. So I really like using some effects on the master, and it could be as simple as, again, like volume automation, filtering. We could use pretty much almost the... So we could use pretty much all of the techniques that I mentioned, maybe besides like panning, because that would be maybe a little bit weird, but again, there are no rules in music, so who cares? If it sounds good, it sounds good. Okay, so let me give you a couple of examples how you can automate on your master channel. So a really simple one is going to be the volume automation. Before the drop, we just drop the volume a little bit, and then when you do it this way, the drop, it hits so much harder. So this is like not a super energetic track. Right, maybe we can make the transition like a little bit smoother, maybe like this. Right, you get the idea. And then again, we can play more with the, let's say with a filter, and just do like this. Cut it like a little bit, this part. Something like this. There's one more plugin that I really, really like. It's super simple and I just love it. It's called Endless Smile. And it's just so simple. So instead of like doing all of these tracks like reverb, delay manually, what you can do, you can just do like this and then draw some automation and do like this. cool, really simple, and that's it. So that was it. Make sure that you play with the master or like the Mix Bus automation, because you can get really, really cool results. Again, playing with compression, playing with saturation, playing with EQ, filtering, all of the things that we discussed, you can do it on the master channel. So the more you automate your mixes, the better and more professional they will sound at the end of the day. Alright guys, that's it for today. Those are 7 pro automation techniques that you can now use for your mixes to make them more professional, more dynamic, and so on. If you liked the video, make sure you leave a comment below, hit that like button, subscribe, and if you want to work with me one-on-one on your music, just send me a message on Instagram, let's chat, and I see you guys in the next video.